They called it a paper plane, a waste of money, a joke. But when Britain's Tempest took on America's Raptor, the world went silent. They laughed at Britain's jet until it outflew the Raptor. The summer skies over Hampshire hummed with the familiar roar of jet engines. Farnborough International Airshow, the great showcase of aerospace ambition, had drawn its usual crowds of journalists, diplomats, engineers, and curious spectators. This year, however, the buzz centered around a peculiar story about Britain's bold new jet fighter. To the world's heavyweights, America with its F-22 Raptor, Russia with its Su-57, and Europe with its Eurofighter consortium, Britain's entry seemed little more than an afterthought. On the runway, under the Union Jack banners, the prototype waited. Its name was whispered more than spoken: Tempest. It looked sleek, yes, its angular frame catching the sun in a way that gave photographers a reason to click. But in the trade tents, the laughter was loud. "Cute," an American colonel muttered, swirling his coffee as he leaned on the edge of the pavilion. "They've basically made a child's drawing of a stealth jet." His colleagues chuckled. The Russians were less subtle. "Paper plane," one of their engineers sneered. "It will fold in the rain." Even some Europeans, bound by alliance, smirked at the attempt. For decades, Britain had relied on multinational projects, Tornado, Typhoon, never daring to go it alone. What business did the UK have designing a sixth-generation fighter on its own? Inside the British hangar, though, the mood was different. Engineers from BAE Systems, Rolls-Royce, and MBDA stood proudly by their creation. For them, this was not a toy, not a prop for air shows, but the culmination of years of sleepless nights, budget battles, and technological gambles. At the center of it all was Dr. Elaine Harcourt, lead engineer. Her glasses caught the glare of the hangar lights as she studied the jet with quiet intensity. She had endured the mockery at every stage of development: too ambitious, too costly, too late. Yet here the aircraft stood, alive and real. Alive and real. And then there was Wing Commander James Hawthorne, the RAF's most daring test pilot, told.com with a mischievous glint in his eye. He had already been briefed on what the Americans were saying. He smiled when told. "Good," he said. "Let them laugh. It'll make the look on their faces sweeter." That afternoon, when the announcer declared Tempest's maiden demonstration, the crowd leaned forward, eager to witness a failure. Cameras were raised, coffee cups were abandoned, the critics smirked, ready to take notes on the embarrassment to come. The Tempest's twin engines howled to life, a deep, almost growling resonance that rolled across the field. Its canopy gleamed as Hawthorne guided it onto the runway. From the grandstands, the skepticism was thick enough to cut with a knife. "They'll be lucky if it even gets off the ground," someone whispered. But as the nose tilted skyward and the jet surged into the blue with a thunderous roar, a few jaws dropped. It wasn't just airworthy, it was fast, frighteningly so. Its climb angle rivaled that of the Raptor itself. The laughter faltered, replaced by uneasy silence. Something they realized was different about this machine. The dream of a nation. Long before the roar at Farnborough, the dream had been scribbled on a napkin. It was 2017, a grey afternoon at Whitehall, when the Ministry of Defence first whispered about going it alone. Britain, still bruised from political storms and economic doubt, was searching for something that would rekindle pride. The Americans had the Raptor. The Chinese were pouring billions into their J-2O. Russia, though struggling, touted the Su-57 as a symbol of defiance. Britain had nothing new in the pipeline. The Royal Air Force, proud inheritors of Spitfires and Vulcans, were destined to fly hand-me-downs unless someone dared to dream bigger. Enter Project Tempest, a codename whispered in secure rooms, passed across conference tables at BAE Systems, Rolls-Royce, Leonardo, and MBDA. To skeptics, it was madness. Britain didn't have the budget. The EU wasn't exactly eager to fund another solo British venture. And the Americans, they were polite but firm. "Why don't you just buy the F-35? It's proven reliable." But to Elaine Harcourt and her fellow engineers, the Tempest wasn't about practicality, it was about sovereignty. "If we give up designing our own jets," she told Parliament in a private session, "we give up our edge. Our pilots deserve more than hand-me-downs. Our nation deserves more than second place." The design team faced impossible demands. The RAF wanted supercruise speeds beyond Mach 2, artificial intelligence-assisted piloting, a modular weapons bay, and stealth geometry that could fool even the most advanced radar. All of it had to fit inside a budget tighter than a shoestring. In the labs of Rolls-Royce, engineers sweated over a revolutionary engine core, a hybrid cycle turbine that could gulp air at low speeds and sip fuel efficiently at high altitude. The weapons team at MBDA dreamed of swarm drones launched mid-flight, controlled by the Tempest's AI. The avionics crew designed an augmented reality cockpit, one that projected tactical data directly onto the pilot's visor. It was audacious, it was reckless, and it was British to the bone. Harcourt herself became the symbol of the program. She walked factory floors at midnight, reminding welders and machinists that what they were building wasn't just another jet, it was history. The Spitfire was mocked once too, she reminded them, but it won the skies. Meanwhile, RAF top brass searched for the right pilot to tame this beast. Most candidates flinched at the risks. The jet systems were unproven, its AI still learning, and its engines temperamental, but James Hawthorne, confident, addicted to danger, volunteered without hesitation. "If it's meant to fail," he said with a grin, "I'd like to be the first to find out." By the time Farnborough came, the project had survived political coups, budget scares, and media mockery. Yet the prototype stood gleaming on the runway, a tribute to stubborn ambition. And now, as the Tempest clawed skyward before the eyes of a skeptical world, that ambition began to look less like madness and more like destiny. The test pilot. James Hawthorne was not the kind of man you found sitting behind a desk. Two colleagues, he was a contradiction, disciplined yet reckless, calm in a crisis yet addicted to pushing limits. The RAF had long nicknamed him the Fox. For his cunning in mock dogfights, he didn't just fly planes, he made them dance. Hawthorne's career had begun in Tornado GR4 South, slogging through low-level strike runs over desert ranges. He'd later moved to Typhoons, where he quickly gained a reputation for humiliating NATO allies in exercises. Americans, French, Germans, it didn't matter. Put Hawthorne in the cockpit, and suddenly their vaunted jets looked clumsy, too arrogant, some of his commanders said. Too brilliant to ignore, countered others. When whispers of a radical new British prototype reached him, Hawthorne's ears perked up. He badgered his superiors until they allowed him to tour the assembly hangar. The first time he laid eyes on Tempest, its matte skin catching the dull fluorescent light, he felt a shiver run through him. "It's raw," he murmured, circling the jet. "Like an animal not yet tamed." Dr. Elaine Harcourt wasn't impressed by his swagger when Hawthorne introduced himself with a cheeky grin and asked, "So, when do I get the keys?" She folded her arms. "This isn't a sports car, Commander. It's untested, temperamental, potentially lethal to anyone reckless enough to push it." "Then I'm the right man for the job," he replied without hesitation. Their working relationship was fiery from the start. Harcourt valued precision and caution. Hawthorne thrived on instinct and risk. Yet as weeks turned into months of flight testing, they developed a grudging respect. He learned to appreciate the genius in her engineering, and she, though she'd never admit it, trusted him to uncover the jet's hidden potential. The first test flights were grueling. Tempest's AI, nicknamed Argus, often second-guessed Hawthorne's maneuvers, locking controls or adjusting thrust mid-flight. More than once, he stormed into the hangar fuming. "Tell your bloody computer to trust me," he barked at Harcourt after one near stall at altitude. "Maybe you should try flying like a human instead of a stuntman," she shot back. But gradually, man and machine adapted to one another. Hawthorne learned to work with Argus, coaxing the AI into partnership rather than rivalry. In turn, the jet began to reveal tricks no simulator had predicted: instantaneous turns, impossible climbs, breathtaking recoveries. Behind closed doors, RAF officials whispered that Hawthorne and the Tempests were becoming inseparable, like Spitfire aces of old who seemed born for their aircraft. Still, the skepticism outside remained. Foreign observers dismissed the test flights as PR stunts. American pilots smirked when Hawthorne's name came up. One F-22 jockey even joked at a NATO bar in Germany, "Tell your Fox he can chase rabbits all he wants, but if he ever faces a raptor, we'll eat him alive." Hawthorne heard about it the next day. He just smiled. "Let's hope I get the chance." The Americans laugh. The Americans were never shy about their confidence. After all, they had the F-22 Raptor, the undisputed king of the skies, a machine so advanced the Pentagon refused to export it even to close allies. To them, Britain's Tempest was little more than a curiosity, a sideshow to the real air power drama. At a NATO summit in Ramstein, senior U.S. generals were openly dismissive. "We appreciate the British initiative," one drawled during a press briefing, "but frankly, nothing flying today or in the next decade will surpass the Raptor, period." The press ate it up. Headlines blared, "Raptor still supreme, Tempest a toy." In the pilot's mess, American aviators were more cutting. "It's like they're trying to reinvent the wheel," one said. Cute, but pointless. Others made bets on how quickly the Tempest project would collapse. The consensus: within 5 years. The mockery stung, but it also hardened resolve in London. Harcourt clipped those headlines and pinned them on the design lab's corkboard. "Every laugh is fuel," she told her team. Hawthorne took a different approach. He began studying the Raptor obsessively, its thrust-vectoring nozzles, its supercruise performance, its stealth profile. He watched hours of classified dogfight footage, memorizing its strengths and hunting for weaknesses. He didn't find many, but he found one: predictability. "The Raptor's pilots rely on their tech too much," he told Harcourt one night over strong tea. "They know they're flying the best, so they get sloppy. Overconfident, that's where we strike." The real test came at Exercise Iron Tempest, a massive NATO wargame staged over the North Sea. It was supposed to be routine alliances showing solidarity. Jets from across Europe practicing maneuvers. But word leaked that Britain intended to field the Tempest in mock combat for the first time. The Americans laughed again. "Bring it on," a Raptor pilot said, his call sign Reaper. "I'll swat your paper plane before lunch." Hawthorne heard that one too. He didn't bother to reply. Instead, he just whispered to Argus inside the cockpit the morning of the exercise. Time to show them we're not a joke. First flight, first shock. The North Sea was a sheet of steel beneath the clouds, and the sky above it bristled with NATO aircraft. Typhoons, Rafales, F-16s, Gripens all wind into formation, their vapor trails curling like chalk lines across the blue. But all eyes hidden behind visors and hoods searched for one plane. The Tempest. The Tempest. When it appeared, sleek and silent, the chatter lit up on secure channels. Copy visual on British prototype. Looks smaller than expected. Probably won't last long. From the cockpit of his Raptor, Reaper smirked. "Fox, you ready to play with the big dogs?" Hawthorne's voice was calm. "Ready when you are." The mock battle began. Fighters split into teams, missiles simulated by electronic pulses, kills logged by computer. Most assumed that Tempest would fly cautiously, staying alive just long enough to claim operational testing. Instead, Hawthorne pounced. The Tempest surged forward with acceleration so sharp the G-forces punched his chest. Argus whispered warnings, but Hawthorne overrode them, throwing the jet into a climbing roll that placed him right behind a pair of unsuspecting Rafales. He locked them virtually in seconds. Kill confirmed. "Bloody hell," muttered a Typhoon pilot. Next, he dove into a pack of F-16s. They tried to box him in, but the Tempest slipped between them with an agility that defied physics. Its AI-controlled thrust vectoring twisted the jet on its axis like a dancer pirouetting mid-air. 2 more kills. But the real challenge came when Reaper's Raptor streaked into view. The exercise chatter fell silent. Everyone knew what was about to happen. The king of the skies versus the paper plane. Reaper made the first move, diving into a tight loop meant to shake Hawthorne off, but the Tempest didn't break. Instead, it followed, mimicking the maneuver almost perfectly. Reaper frowned inside his helmet. Not bad. Then Hawthorne did something that froze every watching radar operator. He cut his engines mid-turn, letting Argus manage airflow as the Tempest flipped nose over tail, then reignited in an instant, appearing behind the Raptor. For 3 glorious seconds, Hawthorne had missile lock. 3 seconds that changed everything. The referees called the engagement off, ruling it a draw. But everyone watching knew what had just happened. The Tempest had matched the Raptor move for move and nearly won. Pressure from above. Back in London, the headlines shifted overnight. Tempest nearly matches Raptor. British jet not a joke after all. The public starved for good news, cheered. But inside Whitehall, the mood was colder. Success meant attention, and attention meant scrutiny. Politicians fretted over costs spiraling out of control. Treasury officials whispered about budget caps. Rival defense firms lobbied to redirect funds toward drones instead. Even within the RAF there was division. Some senior officers thought Tempest was a distraction, too risky in an era of cyber warfare. Others saw it as Britain's last chance to prove relevance in the skies. Harcourt fought daily battles in committee rooms, defending every pound spent. "You cannot cancel Tempest now," she told a gathering of ministers. "We've shown the world it can rival the best. Cancel it, and you don't just waste money, you humiliate this nation." Meanwhile, Hawthorne grew restless. Training flights continued, but bureaucracy slowed progress. Argus was upgraded weekly, learning faster, adapting to Hawthorne's instincts. Man and machine were fusing into something more than a pilot and a jet. But word came from Washington. The US wanted a rematch. This time not in exercises, but in a one-on-one demonstration for NATO brass. Officially, it was friendly competition. Unofficially, it was a challenge. Prove that Farnborough and the North Sea weren't flukes. "Sounds like they want us put in our place," Hawthorne said when he heard the news. Harcourt looked at him, weary but defiant. "Then let's show them where our place really is." The dogfight simulation. The duel was set over the Nevada desert, at a classified range where the US tested its most advanced aircraft. NATO generals, politicians, and industry giants filled observation bunkers, eager to see the showdown. The Raptor, piloted by Reaper, taxied confidently onto the runway. The Americans bet heavily on their ace. Then came the Tempest, shimmering in desert heat. Hawthorne sat calm in the cockpit, Argus feeding him tactical overlays through the visor. Remember, Harcourt's voice crackled in his headset before takeoff. "You're not just flying for yourself. You're flying for every engineer who built this with their bare hands." The jets thundered into the sky. The first pass was cautious high-altitude loops, probing maneuvers. The Raptor's radar ghosted the Tempest, but Argus countered with electronic trickery, painting false echoes. The generals in the bunker leaned forward. Then the fight erupted. Reaper tried to box Hawthorne in, using the Raptor's thrust vectoring to climb impossibly steep, but the Tempest matched it, rolling out at the top with an elegance that left even American officers murmuring. Next, Hawthorne dove low, skimming desert ridges at supersonic speed. The Raptor followed, but the Tempest's engines shifted cycle, gulping oxygen more efficiently, giving it the edge. Reaper cursed as Hawthorne pulled away. But Reaper wasn't beaten yet. He looped high, cutting across the sun, diving for a kill shot. Hawthorne saw the warning flash red on his visor. Argus screamed, "Incoming lock." He had seconds to act. The impossible maneuver. In that split second, instinct took over. Hawthorne yanked the Tempest into a maneuver no simulator had approved, no engineer had signed off. He killed forward thrust, angled vectoring nozzles to maximum deflection, and let the jet flip backward mid a controlled stall no human should attempt. The Tempest hung in the sky for a heartbeat, nose pointing directly at the diving Raptor. Argus wailed in protest, but Hawthorne overrode it with a snarl. "Trust me, damn you." The Raptor, closing fast, overshot. For one breathtaking instant, Britain's jet had the king of the skies dead to rights. Lock confirmed. In the observation bunker, silence reigned. Generals, ministers, engineers, no one spoke. They had just seen the impossible. Reaper pulled out, furious, but it was too late. The duel was called. Kill to the Tempest. Hawthorne exhaled slowly, sweat soaking his flight suit. Argus, perhaps learning from the stunt, muttered a single calm confirmation: engagement, victory. In London, champagne corks popped. On American bases, jaws clenched. The world's headlines screamed, "British jet outflies Raptor." Silence in the skies. The aftermath was seismic. NATO officials, once dismissive, now demanded briefings. Defense contractors scrambled to study what Britain had built. Rumors spread that Tempest's AI integration had leapt years ahead of US systems. The Americans stopped laughing. For Hawthorne, life changed overnight. He was hailed as a hero, the fox who had outfoxed the Raptor. For Harcourt, offers of partnership and funding poured in. But both knew the fight was far from over, because now, expectations were crushing. Britain had shown brilliance once, but could they sustain it? Could they build not just a prototype, but a fleet? Harcourt addressed her exhausted team in the hangar. "We've made history. But history is not enough. We must deliver." Hawthorne, meanwhile, found himself restless again. Victory was sweet, but he knew other nations would now double their efforts. The skies were a chessboard, and the game had just begun. Still, for the first time in decades, Britain wasn't a follower, it was leading. Legacy of fire and steel. Years later, historians would look back at the duel in the Nevada desert as a turning point. The day Britain, dismissed as a has-been, proved it could still shape the future of air power. The Tempest went on to production, though not without setbacks. Budgets strained, politics shifted, rival nations schemed. Yet the legend endured. For Hawthorne, it was the pinnacle of a career. He retired a national icon, the pilot who had flown into mockery and come out immortal. For Harcourt, it was vindication of every sleepless night, every insult endured. And for Britain, it was a reminder that ingenuity, courage, and stubborn pride could still defy giants. "They laughed at our jet," Hawthorne once said in an interview, his hair silver, his grin unchanged, "and then they watched it outfly the Raptor. That's Britain for you. Never count us out." The laughter that once echoed across air shows and briefing rooms was gone, replaced by silence, respect, and the roar of a new era.